two. During the heat of the game, it's clear he's a champ when all else disappears. Rally the team with a wink and a cheer. He's the leader that everyone fears. Quickly, it's a real heater. Once my friend, he's a locker room leader. In the chaos, he's the center, turning us into believers.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is Monday night. It is 7 p.m. Welcome back to the Locker Room Breakdown. I am OM Dynamic, and we have a lot to cover tonight here before we head over to the Raw Patrol. Tonight's episode of Raw is going to be absolutely incredible, off the hook. Just about every title seems like it's going to be on the line, or there's something involving each title. When we go to Sacramento at 8 p.m., we will bring you all of our live action reaction and analysis. But ladies and gentlemen, let's kick it off here. Last week was absolutely immense from Raw in Perth, Australia. Now, I wasn't available for the Raw Patrol last Monday because I was getting up and getting ready for a bonus shift at work. But let's start off, ladies and gentlemen. This show, the way it ended, left us all gasping. We were shocked. And you started off with the same people as we ended off with. So let's start things off with The Vision and Seth Rollins, who was fresh off his victory at Crown Jewel Perth in winning the Crown Jewel Championship and the Crown Jewel Championship ring. And he started it off very, very well. This was a fantastic promo. And before he even got to himself, he acknowledged both Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed, saying that he didn't need them, but he chose to align with them. He called Bronson Reed the new tribal chief, ladies and gentlemen. And that got a mixed reaction, but the crowd from Perth was extremely hot. They were letting their feelings be heard, but they didn't overtake any portion of the show or any segment. And that is a fantastic crowd reaction. But Rollins saying he has done everything on his own, begs to be seen, because throughout his entire career, he has always had people around him, whether it was the Shield, the Authority, now the Vision. Even when he was doing the Messiah and had Austin Theory and Buddy Murphy, now Buddy Matthews elsewhere. But there were definitely things planted for this. But again, kudos to Seth Rollins. I personally don't think there is anybody better on the mic these days than Seth Rollins. On to our first match of the night last week, and what a match it was. Ladies and gentlemen, it was for the Intercontinental Championship, and we had our Intercontinental Champion, our AAA Mega Champion, Dirty Dominic Mysterio, defending against Penta. No Judgment Day at ringside for Dom. Are there cracks in the foundation? I guess we'll find out later on tonight. What happened before this match, there was a confrontation backstage between Penta and Rusev. Rusev saying he's got next because he had already spoken to Pierce, so he was not going to interfere in the match. This match was absolutely incredible. These two guys who have a complete grasp on the psychology of both lucha libre and technical wrestling They absolutely brought it. A lot of high-flying moves, a lot of catch as catch can. There are certain things that I'm missing from Penta's offense now, like his rolling arm breaker. Again, though, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to say this because Dom did come out on top. Penta is really, really being booked the way he was elsewhere. And they need to pull the trigger on something with Penta, whether it's move him to SmackDown, move his brother to Raw so that we can get the Lucha Brothers reunited. But I'm really finding that Penta is a glorified enhancement talent. And I've said this before. And then they went and they gave him a few wins, but now we're back to this. Glorified enhancement talent with a phenomenal entrance. The problem with this was this match started at about around the half-hour mark of Raw and went right into a commercial break. For those who are on the lower tier of Netflix, you got the commercial break, whereas those of us who are on the upper tiers did not. Penta almost got booed, though, for trying to hit Three Amigos. Dom reversed it and gets cheered for it. We did get Rusev coming back down. And Penta took him out. And Penta took his eye off the ball there, targeting Rusev instead of staying focused on Dom. But Rusev already has his match, which we will discuss in a little while, for the Intercontinental Championship. So why was Rusev coming out? It really probably shouldn't have mattered to Rusev who was the Intercontinental Champion going into his upcoming title fight. But we will see. Dom did use the ring hammer, so the hammer to ring the bell, to level Penta, tucked it into his boot to escape with the win. But we also need to remember that since Judgment Day wasn't at ringside for Dom, although we didn't see them last Monday, Dom does have El Grande and Los Americanos to fall back on. And this is huge, ladies and gentlemen. So Dom, very much like Seth, really, really shielding himself, so to speak, by making sure he's got his back covered no matter what way he goes. Epic matchup as a result, coming out of Crown Jewel, where we saw the team of Rhea Ripley and Io Sky defeat the Kabuki Warriors. We did get a one-on-one match with Rhea Ripley and Kairi Sane last Monday. And again, what a match. Rhea's talent for working with smaller wrestlers is off the charts. Now, Rhea appears to really tower above just about every other woman in that locker room, with the exception of Raquel Rodriguez. But ladies and gentlemen, I mean, these two women absolutely brought it. And Kairi is an amazing, amazing competitor. But her spot in the pecking order of the Japanese female wrestlers, WWE should be ashamed of themselves, because Kairi Sane can deliver. And I'll say this, Kairi Sane has delivered far better matches in her much shorter time in WWE than I've ever seen Asuka deliver. And I know there are people out there that are going to disagree with me, and I'm not a huge Asuka fan. She has grown on me somewhat, but Kairi is still the better competitor. Now, this match, I mean, Sane did get the upper hand. Rhea pulled out some moves that we have not ever really seen, like a fisherman suplex. Both women brought this physicality, and there is no denying how physical Rhea can be. I don't think anybody has ever truly thought that Kyrie could be as physical as she was. Now, of course, we did get interference from Asuka on the outside, which brought Io Sky down. With Asuka attacking Io after the match, but Rhea took her down, and then we almost got Asuka going through the table. So I know that this tag team feud is far from done, and it's just going to be a matter to see of when they go at each other next. And I am going to be honest with you. I've said Rhea and Io need to stay away from the Women's World Heavyweight Championship picture for a while. And I think this is perfect. I even think that at some point you could get these four women to contend for a number one contender spot for the Women's Intercontinental Championship. But Rhea Ripley did defeat Kairi Sane last Monday with the Riptide. And I mean, again, ladies and gentlemen, what a match. These two women absolutely bring it each and every time. And right now, the WWE Women's Division, and I don't care which brand it is, whether it's Raw, SmackDown, or NXT, is straight up the best women's division in wrestling. And I'm going to say that I'm going to put them ahead of Shimmer. I'm going to put them ahead of Glow. These women deliver, they step up, and they set the bar each and every week, each and every show. Backstage, we get LA Knight being interviewed, where he is then interrupted by CM Punk as they are discussing number one contention. Who is going to be the first to challenge Seth Rollins now while he is the World Heavyweight Champion? And this is very, very, very intriguing. Oh, I apologize, ladies and gentlemen. It was a Northern Light suplex, not a Fisherman suplex in the Rhea Ripley match. But this led to something a little bit more later on. But we did have Bronson Reed, the newly anointed tribal chief by Seth Rollins, accompanied by Paul Heyman, come down to take on Jimmy Uso. And again, ladies and gentlemen, this was perhaps, for me, maybe the lull in the action. I mean, this was still a good, solid match, but it really wasn't to the level that I think it really could have been, but it got the point across. It told the story it absolutely needed to, ladies and gentlemen. Bronson Reed did take control right off the bat, and Bronson did come away with the victory. Jimmy went in banged up after being speared through the barricade. This match did not stay as a one-on-one, but after the match, Braun Breaker showed up, speared Jimmy twice. Jay ran out to the ring to make the save, but there's still tension within the Usos, as we've seen. So where do we go from here? Ladies and gentlemen, an incredible women's tag team match. And ladies and gentlemen, what have I always said about these women? They bring it, they set the bar each and every time out. Two accomplished veterans. Well, sorry, one really accomplished veteran, one who's at the, I'm going to say the sophomore stage of her career, so she's no longer the rookie, but she's not that proven veteran yet. But we had Bailey and Lyra Valkyria versus Roxanne Perez and Raquel Rodriguez. Bailey and Roxanne, of course, being the two more experienced women on the main roster, of course. But this, ladies and gentlemen, this was a very, very intriguing matchup because we didn't know what side of Bailey we were going to get with Lyra. We know what we're getting with the Judgment Day with Raquel and Roxanne. Ladies and gentlemen, this match for me truly, truly stole the show. This was a rare case, though, where the heels were not in control as often. But when they took control, they were dominant, and you could see Raquel really showing it. She is starting to really develop that je ne sais quoi, so to speak, that she has needed. And I love it, ladies and gentlemen. I have always been a fan of Raquel Rodriguez, and they need to keep her on this path. They need to get a singles belt onto Raquel Rodriguez, whether it's getting her into the Women's World Heavyweight Championship picture or, again, having her win the Women's Intercontinental Championship. I think she would be a perfect women's champion. Outside of the tag team division, though I would be okay for that as well. She's held that belt enough between Liv Morgan and Roxanne and whomever else. I don't think she needs that anymore. I think it's time for Raquel to venture out onto her own and go leave her impression. But Bailey did go down, and it looked like she was out. Lyra had to do something we never thought we would see. She smacked Bailey upside the head to wake her up and get her back into the action, which normally something like that would have triggered Bailey. Bailey probably would have snapped and we would have seen her attack Lyra. No, she maintained her focus instead and went after Raquel and Roxanne. And she did pick up the win for herself and Lyra with her finisher, the Rose Plant. I'm really, really intrigued to see where they go with this, in this direction with Lyra and Bailey, whether they're going to get them to the tag team title picture or whether we are going to see one of them snap on the other after a loss. Then our main event of the evening, and ladies and gentlemen, this was a fantastic main event. I mentioned earlier about the CM Punk LA Knight promo in the back. That did get interrupted by another man as well. Main event, Jey Uso. We got a number one contenders triple threat match. And ladies and gentlemen, the crowd went absolutely nuts. Much like we see a lot internationally, the crowd was singing the songs. And even after Punk's got cut off, you could hear the crowd singing loud. Punk did this, showing that he felt the love from the Australian crowd. And thank you, Perth, for delivering that type of a moment and that type of a reaction. That was fantastic. I love when the crowds are loud, enthusiastic, and it encourages the product. Now, this was a match that we've seen taking its shape over the last little while. We saw these three men versus Seth Rollins at at Clash in Paris a few months ago in a fatal four-way for the World Heavyweight title. But this one, there was no alliances. And it was three baby faces in action Where do you go? Who do you cheer for? I don't know. I don't know that I don't even know who I wanted to actually see win that match just because of where we were going. In the end, like this was a fantastic match, but again, to me, it sort of felt rushed in getting it thrown in as the main event with really no build to it. Now, CM Punk won the match and has himself a number one contender spot for Seth Rollins, but there is more to that story, which we will cover here in just a few minutes. LA Knight could have had the victory. He had hit his finisher, but Jey Uso pulls him out of the ring to save the match, and it cost them both. But ladies and gentlemen, the moment came that shocked us all. After the match, Seth Rollins came down with the Vision, and all three men, LA Knight, Jey Uso, and CM Punk, did get beat up. They did suffer the wrath of the Vision. But then the unthinkable happened. Braun Breaker leveled Seth freaking Rollins with a spear, held up the World Heavyweight Championship, and walked out of the ring with it. In fact, over this past weekend's tour in Japan, Braun Breaker was seen carrying the belt to the ring or wearing it around his waist. And ladies and gentlemen, this is very, very intriguing. What does this mean for Seth Rollins? There are different reports out there regarding his health. We will find out tonight on the preview portion of the show, which is coming up in just a few moments. But not only did Braun Breaker spear Seth Rollins, he then got in Bronson Reed's face. Bronson then dragged Seth to the corner and hit him with the tsunami, and they forced Paul Heyman to raise their hands. And the look on Paul Heyman's face, the look of pure disgust at Seth Rollins afterwards, was very, very telling to me. Was this a plan all along, or is there something more to this than just a surprise attack? Ladies and gentlemen, we will find out those results and more tonight on Raw and on the Raw Patrol. But ladies and gentlemen, we need to pay the bills here as well. So I need you to take a look at this. And we're going to start it off, ladies and gentlemen, by telling you we want your help.
A Turnbuckle affiliation program is looking for more people. If you have passion level for pro wrestling, sports, video games, or something else, then Turnbuckle Studios is the place to be. If you have ever wanted to pursue content creation and want to join our team, then we would love to have you. Check out turnbucklestudios.org or contact us by email today because your future is now, and we want you to tap in.
The Turnbuckle Studios store is open for you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Get the merch and represent the best from the shows you watch on a weekly basis. Multiple styles to choose from with over 10 products available. Don't get left out and pick up all your favorites today. Find us at carlcarafel.redbubble.com. Turnbuckle Studios and the Turnbuckle Affiliation Program bring you the week of streams. Monday nights you get the Locker Room Breakdown at 7 p.m. Eastern, followed by the Raw Patrol at 8 p.m. Eastern. Tuesday brings you the flagship show, Turnbuckle Talk, at 8:05 p.m. Eastern. Wednesday we play games with the PlayStation Showcase at 8 p.m. Eastern. Thursday we go TNA when we brace for Impact at 7:55 p.m. Eastern. Friday we secure all details as we answer the call for the SmackDown security detail at 8 p.m. Eastern. The Weekend brings you Saturday Night Gaming at 8 p.m. Eastern. On Sundays, be sure to catch the Chris Parrish podcast at 12:15 p.m. Eastern, followed by the Boar's Nest at 8 p.m. Eastern. Be part of the shows and join the chat every day.
And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. And if you want your break in podcasting, content creation, potential collaboration, or help us out behind the scenes, turnbucklestudios.org is the place to go. turnbucklestudios.org/join to send us your credentials, and we can sit down as a collective and figure it out. Go over to the host section and meet the team. Myself, Chris Best, Chris Parrish, Bubba Duke, and of course the Godfather, Carl Carafel. Watch all of our latest weekly episodic shows. And of course, click the shop button to go to carlcarafel.redbubble.com. All right, ladies and gentlemen, on to tonight, and what a show we are in for. Sacramento, California, which I believe was where the Raw on Netflix era kicked off. We are in for one hell of a show. We have 3 different title matches. But the big one, after last weekend, or after last Monday, and what Braun Breaker, Bronson Reed, and Paul Heyman did to Seth Rollins, what's going to happen with the World Heavyweight Championship? Adam Pearce is going to come out and tell us exactly what is going to happen. He's going to have an update on Seth Rollins, as well as the status of the World Heavyweight Championship. Now, do we get that right off the bat, or do we wait a little bit into the show? But ladies and gentlemen, we have a Women's Intercontinental Championship match and a rematch, because last week we saw Maxine Dupree defeat Becky Lynch, and I said this last week, Maxine is the most improved female competitor in that ring and on that roster. And I haven't seen anybody improve as much as Maxine since Liv Morgan. Now, we know that this was via a countout between Maxine and Becky, but wow. Wow. Do we get a new champion? Do we get some interference? I've said it before that I think Becky is using the Intercontinental title as a set piece. I don't think she really needs it. I think it's more for her aesthetic and more for a decoration. So I'm really not huge on Becky carrying that Intercontinental Championship for a whole lot longer. But is Maxine ready for it? I don't believe so. I think Maxine still needs to improve, but she has come so far in such a short time that I cannot wait for this match and to see what we are going to get from Maxine. She really proved last week now that she can hang, and she's not just in there to look good and, hit a few moves. Maxine can go, and I want to see her step up and really, really deliver. I think what is going to happen is Becky is going to get the victory, whether it's clean or nefarious means. And I think we are going to see the return of AJ Lee tonight in Sacramento to set that up, whether it's going to be for Saturday night's main event in a couple of weeks or further down the road. But this match could very, very easily set the bar for the show. We don't know what's going to open the show tonight, ladies and gentlemen. And I don't have any speculation on what could. We have another Intercontinental Championship match, as we discussed earlier. Rusev had talked to Pierce last week, got involved in that match and distracted, or allowed Penta to distract himself for whatever reason. But we get Rusev versus Dirty Dominic Mysterio tonight. This is a rematch. We saw this just a few weeks ago. And Dom stole the victory and snuck away with the Intercontinental Championship. Numerous reports on what is going to happen with Dirty Dom and the Intercontinental Championship between now and the end of November at Survivor Series. We've got another month and 10 days, so about 5.5 weeks, ladies and gentlemen. So where do we go with that? Do I see Rusev winning the Intercontinental Championship tonight? 2 weeks ago when we saw this match, I said no, I think Dom is going to keep it. And I'm going to stay with that prediction. I think Dom is going to retain. I don't think he's going to have Judgment Day back up again tonight. But I think tonight that the team of Los Americanos is going to play a huge, huge factor in that match for Dom. And again, ladies and gentlemen, we don't know if Rusev is a babyface or a heel. He's sort of getting that. He acts like a heel, but he is getting the huge reaction from the crowd and has since he returned to the Raw after WrestleMania. But I am going to stick with Dom retaining the Intercontinental Championship here tonight. As well, ladies and gentlemen, we will hear from Seth Rollins, or sorry, not Seth Rollins, but from Braun Breaker, Bronson Reed, and Paul Heyman as to why they did what they did. Does it have to do with the title? Does it have to do with power and control? Does it have to do with them being the future of the industry? Or, as the other reports are, Seth is hurt and wasn't going to be around and couldn't be around for them for a while. So was this just a way for them to really now strike out on their own and push themselves to that upper echelon? Can they become the new two-man power trip in winning all the gold? Ladies and gentlemen, it is something that I would be very, very intrigued and love to see. Or do we get a new Dangerous Alliance from Paul Heyman? And do we get a new Paul Heyman girl? Because where does Becky Lynch fit into all of this? She joined the Vision at Clash in Paris. All for this to come down now. And of course, her husband being Seth Rollins. Does she stick with the Vision or does she stay at her husband's side? Very, very intriguing developments in all of this, ladies and gentlemen. Sacramento, get ready to blow the roof off, but there is still more. As well, we are going to hear from CM Punk, our number one contender, potentially Rhea Ripley, Jey Uso, and Penta. For those that don't know, Rhea Ripley was injured this past weekend in Japan. She suffered a broken nose. So we will have to just wait and see what she has to say, if she's there or if she decides to take some time off and recover. Punk, I am sure, is going to talk about the state of the World Heavyweight Championship as well, and who's going to challenge him. We know that Adam Pearce is going to clear the air on Seth Rollins and on the World Heavyweight Championship. Do we have to find a new contender? Does Seth relinquish the title, or do we get Seth versus Punk in a few weeks? Ladies and gentlemen, there is so much to wait and see. But, ladies and gentlemen, we are also going to get a World Tag Team Championship matchup. The Judgment Day, Finn Balor and JD McDonough are going to defend against Dragon Lee and AJ Styles. This is a very, very intriguing match. We have not seen the Judgment Day defend those tag team titles as much as they should have, but they have delivered each and every time. Dragon Lee and AJ are sort of an upstart tag team, and AJ has had his issues with the Judgment Day since the very, very beginning, since it was Edge, Damian Priest, and Rhea Ripley. So is it time that AJ gets one over? Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to be very honest. I think AJ Styles should be put into the class to be it, depending on the Seth Rollins situation, to challenge for that World Heavyweight Championship and potentially get one more run before his career winds down next year. I do believe as well, ladies and gentlemen, that we will hear from John Cena tonight. I don't think his focus is going to be on the title. But back to this match. This is very, very intriguing. Does the Judgment Day have a plan in place for AJ Styles and Dragon Lee? Do AJ Styles and Dragon Lee have a counter if there is interference from the Judgment Day? This again was brought on by Dominic Mysterio running his mouth at AJ Styles and Adam Pearce last week. So we know that there is some friction there amongst the members of the Judgment Day. Does that friction blow back up in their face? I'm going to say yes, ladies and gentlemen. As of tonight, we will have new World Tag Team Champions here on Raw. And all that, ladies and gentlemen, and so much more. So, ladies and gentlemen, please make your way over to Turnbuckle Studios and the YouTube page there to check out the Raw Patrol with myself, with Chris Best, with Chris Parrish, and whomever else may come into the show. And ladies and gentlemen, once again, the hottest site on the interwebs, turnbucklestudios.org/join to send us your creds. Check us out. Ladies and gentlemen, I am OM Dynamic. For all of us here at the Locker Room and the Turnbuckle Affiliation Program, to those of you out there, wherever you are, good night, good luck. I'm out.
In the locker room, a guy you'll find loves bad hockey, teams can't deny. His best friend to shut the hand so true, loyal until his friend goes number 2. During the heat of the game, it's clear he's a champ when all else disappears. Rally the team with a wink and a cheer.